Hey there, and welcome to The Influence Gap. And oh, goodness me, I have just had the best conversation with Mark Roberge. Mark Roberge is the co-founder of Stage 2 Capital. He's also was number 4 employee of HubSpot as the Chief Revenue Officer. And he is also, and this is how I know him, he is a member of the teaching faculty at Harvard Business School. And I've been so fortunate to have him on today's show, and we are talking about everything from serendipity to scaling revenue to coaching at a different level. We're looking at pipeline and data and metrics, and finally we discuss mental health, but most importantly we are also diving into aspects of Mark's latest book, which is The Science of Scaling. And so I can't wait to bring this conversation to you right now with Mark Roberge. Hey, this is Bernadette McClelland, and welcome to The Influence Gap. This is the show where leaders come to close the gap between intention and impact so that they can have the right conversations, make the right decisions, and achieve the results that matter the most. Okay, Mark Roberge. This is a little bit different, me being on the opposite side of the camera. Normally it's you with us coaches at Harvard.
I know you're out there in the audience asking awesome questions to clarify and get ready for the week. So this is awesome to jam in a different context, Bernadette.
Yeah, well, look, great. Thanks for being a guest on the Influence Gap. So welcome, officially welcome.
Thank you.
Now, a couple of things I want to talk about today. One is definitely your new book that's coming out, and that has come out rather, and so that is around the science of scaling, and so we'll talk about that. And also, I want to have a conversation around the industry as it is at the moment when it comes to revenue growth, because it's pretty tough out there, and what are some of the areas that leaders can dive into. But before we go there, you were at HubSpot. You were employee number 4. And before that, you were at MIT and you got your MBA in engineering. Was it?
I was an engineer undergrad, and then the MIT was business school. Right. So it's definitely like quant focused, right? Like that's always been known as a quant focused, which, one of many things that I suppose it's like, how was your childhood? Like those things, the way you're wired, right? And so it definitely was extraordinarily influential in my early wirings as a career.
Got it, because I was curious about that, and I read it, and I've heard that, and it's like, at what moment did you go from that to sales? Because you were the CRO. I mean, HubSpot was
just so all serendipity.
Yeah,
I stopped having a plan because, in reflecting, I don't know, 10 years ago on my career, it was like, holy cow. All the things that like worked out were not things that I planned for. There were things that it was like, I always tell my students this. I'm like, listen, we're all A-type people and we got to have a plan, but like, make sure you stay open-minded and not to be cheesy, but like, listen to where the energy is and where the universe is pulling you, because, I never intended to go into sales. I never intended to write a book or become a professor or become a venture capitalist. All of those things were things that originated from an inbound inquiry from someone of like, hey, would you consider doing this or trying this? And those are not the only 6 things that I tried. There's a long list of things I tried that didn't lead to that amount of energy. But those things led to, a career in sales, a career as a professor, a career as an investor, a career as an author and speaker, none of which I pursued.
Oh, you know, I say it's like, have your dream or have your goal, but hold it very loosely in your hand. Like,
Yeah.
hold it loosely, because, you know, I just reflect on that movie Sliding Doors.
Yeah.
With Gwyneth Paltrow. You don't know.
Good
I didn't know I
example.
was going to be living in America like 5 years ago.
Right.
You know,
Crazy. We all have those stories, right?
yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so wonderful. So HubSpot, that's fine. And now your career where you are now, and the investment world, you know, helping startups and Harvard and all of those wonderful things. How has your thinking, so we're talking about evolution here and things changing, how has your thinking evolved since those early HubSpot days, especially when it comes to, I guess, in regard to what actually makes revenue scalable?
Yep. Well, I think when you're an operator like that, you know, and up until the HubSpot days, during the HubSpot days, I was a full-time operator at all the companies I worked at. And I don't think you appreciate how, not kitty cornered or overweighted or over influenced you are on the context in which you're working. Like you think that all those things that are happening are applicable to every other business. And that has been a really underlying theme in you know, my last 12 years of my career, where I wasn't operating. I was teaching and serving on boards and advising and investing, where suddenly my career was this set of pattern recognition, you know, involved in dozens of companies at any given moment. Never mind all the companies I help my students with, and HubSpot alum and all these different things. And it's shocking to see how much inappropriate cut and paste there is out there in businesses in general, certainly in go-to-market systems. And so what I mean by that, Bernadette, is, you know, in the recent work, I talk about the design of a go-to-market system, your ICP, the sales methodology you choose, your hiring profiles for sellers, SDRs, marketers, et cetera, the way you create demand, the way you compensate your salespeople, the way you set your pricing and packaging. There's no universal right answer to any of those designs. They all have to be rooted and optimized within the context in which you operate. Correct. What do you sell and to who? And I feel like a lot of businesses mess that up because they're over-indexed in their last company. And, you know, I mean, just most sales leaders, when they join a company, use the comp plan from their last company. They use the sales rep hiring profile from their last. Correct. They use the sales methodology from their company. And that leads to sub-optimization. So I think that's probably like the main theme of an observation as I transition from operator to these other roles. What's interesting is, like, about 5 years into that journey, I'd amassed, you know, probably about 15 to 20 companies that I was quite intimate with, like a day a week type stuff, you know, really in the calls. And of those 15 or 20, there were some great successes and lots of failures. There was an IPO, there was a $1 billion exit, there was a couple $1 billion valuations, there's a couple still trucking, there's a bunch of bankruptcies. And it was a really cool moment to be able to reflect and try to ask why. Why this versus that? And so many of those reflections came back to what you were asking about, was when did those companies choose to scale and how fast did they choose? And those are very important strategic questions that I feel the ecosystem approaches with far less rigor than they deserve. Just a lot of just instincts that is unnecessary. And that's kind of been my recent work, that again was just a pull from the ecosystem of it's crazy how many classes there are in college around how to recognize and accrue revenue. And the same classes don't exist, the same frameworks don't exist to determine how to scale revenue. specifically when and how fast. So that's really the summary of the science of scaling and the recent work is to try to approach those questions and answers in a very first principles way, using the data of the company, not what someone else did 10 years ago in a different context.
Interesting. It's interesting. And, you know, I'm hearing that as well out there in the marketplace, is that fractional sales leaders, you know, they'll move from company to company and they'll just take the old playbook with them.
Right.
It's kind of the same thing. So when companies think that they are ready to scale, okay, so what are some of the signs that tell you that they are either not ready or they are ready?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I boil it down to two steps that are advisably sequential, product market fit and then go to market fit. And it's really the double click into their definitions that is important. So product market fit's an interesting one. I would say most students, founders, when I ask them, what are you looking for before you scale? They'll say product market fit. Great. I mean, that is a term that wasn't around in the 80s and 90s. It's a term that I probably credit to Eric Ries, the lean startup, and significant contributions from Steve Blank that caused us as entrepreneurs to be far better. We no longer built products in a lab and hoped that they worked and sold. We instead built products hand in hand with customers, design partners, to pivot and make sure we're solving their problem. That's great. That's wonderful execution involvement. However, you turn around and ask those same people, what is product market fit? And you get hundreds of different answers. It's just not known as there's no rigor around it. And oftentimes those answers are 1 million in revenue, 100 customers, 1,000 inbound leads. And
so you can define the criteria.
Very, demand centric, revenue centric. And you can define it however you want, but I strongly recommend you perceive those as incorrect and root the definition of product market fit in customer value creation. Right. So I qualitatively would explain it as you can consistently create the value for your customers that you promised. And the way I measure it is retention. Like if you have great retention, then I think you have product market fit. Now, the problem with that metric is a significant lagging indicator. If you sign up 12 customers this month or this quarter, you don't have a good sense of their retention for quite some time.
True.
And that's when I introduced a concept that the ecosystem has gravitated to, that is an evolution from our past work, which is the leading indicator of retention. And so what is it that you can see in that first, say, month that a customer is with you, that if it happens, they'll be with you forever. And if it doesn't, they will likely churn. And it kind of represents that they've extracted the value that you promised. So like Slacks is like, I kind of frame it as P% of customers do e-event every T time. So kind of like boil it down to selecting the numbers behind 3 metrics. And like Slack, it's like 80% of customers send 2,000 team messages every month. It's beautiful. Like Harvey, the cool legal AI startup, is, 70% of lawyers process a document every day using AI. And so that's an important rooting. And now we start to hone in on a clearer definition of product market fit, rooted in customer value creation, measured in the long term by retention, and instrumented in the short term by your leading indicator of retention.
Yeah. Okay. So how would a company determine their leading indicator of retention?
Well, the book talks a lot about that. I mean, that's one of those cool things that still has some entrepreneurial creativity to it.
Yeah.
There's no single answer. I gave you a couple examples, like HubSpot's is 80% of customers use 5 or more features in the platform every month. The the E is the hardest one, and you just want to root it in, like, it's almost like if you went out and just did a little bit of customer research and asked them the value they were hoping to extract from your business, that's usually a pretty good indicator
Well, that would,
of what that event would be. Go ahead.
yeah, no, that would be, well, that would be, I mean, as part of a normal conversation is understanding what the KPIs or what the criteria is for the buyer or the client. How did they get measured to start with?
You want to work on one of your businesses? Let's do it.
No. No. I'm just saying.
Let's throw out a fictitious one though, like just so we can bring it to life.
As a salesperson going out there and having that conversation and understanding in that qualitative state, the early part, understanding how the prospect gets measured without them, nothing to do with getting paid. I remember training one of the sales leaders I was working with, said, we can't ask that question. That's personal. I mean, no, that's not where I'm going. Yeah. It's how do they get measured? And so that, I'm sure, would be part of that retention.
Exactly.
Part of it. That's where I'm going there. So yeah, I guess for salespeople, just to, and this is also what I want to discuss as well, because you're data driven and this is all data. Yeah. With the way that we've gone from the era of CRMs, and we've gone through the whole marketing part, and marketing, now becoming a revenue driver in the business instead of just a discretionary spend based on story and relationships and all the rest of it. So we've got marketing and sales. We all know that argument, the leads and all the rest of it, marketing, qualified leads, sales, qualified leads. Where do you think that the challenges are moving forward with all this data, with all the dashboards, with all this, the expectations on salespeople? And we've got the forecasts, and we've got our pipelines, and we've got our buyer's journey, and the smart sales leaders know to merge the movement of the pipeline through the buyer's lens and our lens, what I call the biased lens, our biased lens. So they know to move the pipeline with a duality. Yes. But we're still closing the deal based on data, based on metrics, on a pipeline. But is that enough moving forward when you now have so many decision makers involved in a deal? Something's missing. Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing there is both a forever problem that I think we've had in the ecosystem, and also a separate opportunity in the age of AI. So the forever problem is the way we frame it at Harvard that you help us teach, is the definition of a decision-making unit in these sales where there are multiple constituents, which is not every context. I mean, if you're selling to a general contractor, usually the president is like, they're sort of command and control. They just make the whole call. True. You have to care about one individual as a buyer. When you're selling a hospital, which is what we use the case as, there's multiple constituents. And I think the aha moment for sellers that move into this context for the first time is there is no, like, the organizational pain is not shared in the same way by each of those constituents. Correct. Right, which we call the decision-making unit, or DMU. Correct. So like in that case, in a hospital, you have the chief medical officer who's kind of running the hospital. And they're very much like, the happiness of the doctors and the retention and, some of the overarching financial economics. The CFO is very much ROI. Like, if I give you $700,000, when should I expect to see that back 2, 3, 4x? And how can you prove it to me? The head of the internal medicine just cares that, like, are my doctors going to complain about this thing? Like, what's the support like?
can we go home earlier? And the head of security is like, are you going to cause like a security breach? And does it integrate with the rest of my tech? And is it going to create a time burden for my staff? Right. So those are all like what intuitive, very logical viewpoints. And yet most sellers, to your point, Bernadette, walk into those meetings assuming that what they learned from the chief medical officer is going to be shared by everybody else. And they don't redo discovery to understand the perceptions and problems that your solution is going to solve so that you can present it in the right way and focus on the right points. Now that's the forever problem.
That is the forever problem. I agree. And that's an area, and I mean, we're probably coming at that from two different angles as well. You coming up from the data and, you know, side of things. And yes, the decision-making units and the ability for a salesperson to be able to have business conversations now.
Yes.
Not just sales conversations.
Yes.
And to be aware of that earlier than they may have been used to. But also, if we think about the bell curve, okay, we've got laggards at one end and we've got early adopters at the other. Now, they are completely different decision-making processes within the individual.
Yes. On one hand, the early adopters, like, this is so cool, I can't wait to play with it and send you tons of feedback, which is a great early customer. And the laggard is like, this is conceptually cool, but please send me 15 case studies of how it works.
Correct. And so I'm kind of wondering, you know, we're talking about the challenge and with all the accelerating information and all the rest of it, there is the forever problem. And I'm wondering from 2 points, is it the sales leader needing to understand their team a little bit better into how their team processes and ticks and makes decisions to work the pipeline better? And is it also the opportunity for salespeople to understand how buyers really make decisions at a deeper level outside of a decision-making unit, business-wise, versus that salesperson merely engaging with a buyer?
Yeah, totally. I mean, and you're also, I think what you're alluding to some degree too, with these types of deals, champions matter so much. You know, a lot of the great enterprise sellers that navigate these buyer contexts will say they don't win because they had the best product or price. They say because they were able to develop the strongest champion. Because at the end of the day, a major decision like this is ultimately going to happen when you're not in the room. You know, oftentimes, if you are lucky to be in the final race, there will be this like final presentation day where they hear from you in the morning and they hear from your competitor in the afternoon, and it's the same 8 people, and you'll be dismissed. And then those 8 people will make a decision, and one person's going to be championing you and be like, we should go with this. And someone else in that room is going to be championing your competition.
Correct.
And oftentimes, whoever has the most political power is actually going to get that deal. And that is often overlooked of like, in your discovery as a deal evolves, understanding how those politics work and making sure that your champion is the strongest and you're going to get that deal.
Yeah. And so spot on. And then bringing it right the way back inside the 4 walls of a sales team, 4 walls of that vendor.
Yeah.
You then have individuals who are overcoming their own gremlins, if you like, oh my gosh, you know, I've now got to move out of the operational side and the user, and I've got to go up there to the C-level.
Yes.
You know,
scared.
Absolutely. And
takes a lot of work. They get denied.
Yeah. And you know, but apart from that, it's just all this conditioning stuff from years ago as well. So I'm just wondering have we become a little bit too optimized, maybe also around numbers and around process, so much so that we're underestimating the emotional side of decision making.
I would agree with that. I think like this data-driven selling movement just made headlines, and there was way over indexing on it. I mean, I think when I first published the book, the first one, Sales Acceleration Formula, 12 years ago, that contributed to this body of work, you saw a lot of situations where boards and CEOs were putting in CROs who were a lot more like RevOps people than they were true CROs in terms of human management. You know, they were like, they could come up with the perfect dashboard and the perfect funnel and the perfect forecast, but it wasn't sufficient because they got caught up in the hype. And honestly, 10 years ago, when this was happening, if I had to choose between an A+ human management team, like they're going to do great hires, they're going to ramp these people, they're going to coach them, they're going to be aware of how people are coached well, they're going to find ways to motivate those people, they're going to find ways to move them out if they don't make sense, versus and a B- RevOps team, you know, like pretty good at the data, but like not an A+, versus an A+ RevOps team with a B- human management team. The former would always win. The human management would always win. And I think that was overswung, and still is. I do think it will change a bit as we enter the AI era. I think we might see situations where the A+ data-driven process, tech stack, science, RevOps team with a B- human management may start to win. But like, that's not where we're in most cases today.
Yeah, correct. Today, I mean, that correlation between a high-performing salesperson and coaching, you still can't beat that. For high performance, I don't believe anyway. I mean, yeah, that's my opinion. Okay, so as uncertainty is increasing out there, burnout is happening, stress is increasing, people are under scrutiny all the time, and there's a cost. There's a cost for the human, there's a cost to the team dynamics, there's a cost to the business. What do you see or have seen are some of the behavioral changes in a leader under pressure in today's environment?
It's really tough out there because we're in this transition, and there's this like 996 movement that like everybody, it's like a gold rush, and you need to work, around the clock. I've always been a health proponent as a human. I'm donated all the proceeds of the book to mental health.
Yes.
And we can talk about that
Yes.
later on why. But at the same time, like, there are times when you have to step up. And when I see my 28-year-old students go out to Silicon Valley and join some of these high flyer AI companies that are demanding 996, I mean, there are times when you have to step up and like you go for it. But if you're doing that for 5, 10, 15 years, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And, I don't think the whole ecosystem will sustain that. I mean, just look at the shift from 2021, where it was a war for talent, to 2022, where everyone was getting laid off due to like economic shifts.
Yeah.
And it'll correct itself again. There have been other countries through the 70s, 80s that ran 996 and did not become the GDP powerhouse. So like there's not a ton of historical evidence that working harder yields better results over a long period of time. So it's a tough one, Bernadette, because I put a massive caution out there for the young folks that I mentor. But we've all been in moments in our life where we had to step up.
Yeah.
And it's not crazy to do it now. Just don't make it a forever.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we're designed We're designed to put up with stress. I mean, our bodies are, are designed that way. Mother Nature makes it that way. But it's the longevity of it, and that's where the damage gets done. So I echo what you're saying. I would like to lean into the fact that 100% of the proceeds of your book are going to the McLean Hospital in Massachusetts.
Yes,
and
I do think most folks in the field, and I've gotten many notes from, psychologists, psychiatrists, et cetera, that even though they don't work there, they agree, many would agree they do the best research. And like, that's not a contest. It's just like, happens to be one local, they're in the Harvard community, and I think their research is phenomenal. And it was just, I couldn't just throw it out to mental health. There's no, I thought that was a good org to throw it to that could help the ecosystem the most. And, there were two drivers around that. One personal and one in a startup, like a tech ecosystem observation. The personal one is mental health has been a big part of my life. We've all had friends and family who've gone through it where we had to support them.
Yeah.
I've been a primary caretaker for someone who's gone through dramatic, life-threatening situations, which is so hard and scary for the caretaker and the patient.
Agreed.
I've been a patient as well, and it's kind of crazy the stigma that still exists. It's improved greatly generation over generation, but even still to this day, when we find out that a candidate we're interviewing recovered from cancer 10 years ago, we probably elevate our perception of that individual in our mind.
Yeah.
But if we find out that they had a serious mental illness, we may have caution around them. And it's just not fair. It's a disease. It's often genetic, and we have to do better with that. And that's part of my, this gives me an opportunity with every platform I am blessed with. I can say that, and not everyone is just very blessed with some of these resume wins that allows me to be vulnerable that others don't have. So that's part of the platform. And the other half is, as we enter this AI era, I just think the tech community is spending 100x more in capital, time, talent, and resources in building AI, as opposed to helping society adapt to it. And I just think we need to do more. I don't think we can delegate it to Washington or academic economists. They're just not close enough to it. And, with every tech movement, we evolve holistically as a society, like the internet, like we evolved as a society, but there's scars along the way. And those scars are on pace to be even more massive with our movement to AI. And I just think the tech community, each individual has to find a little way to offset that and continue to find more ways. And this is just my little way right now in this year to contribute to that and help inspire others to do the same.
Well, it's not a little way, and I thank you for it. It's so important, and I think our voices are really important. I haven't been affected at all from a mental health perspective, although my husband may disagree with me there. However, we have gone through bankruptcy 10 years ago. I got physically sick, and we share our bankruptcy story. And it's for the same reason. It's to remove the stigma.
Right.
I volunteer at Colorado State Penitentiary, working with the inmates.
Amazing.
Should they get out on the entrepreneurial program.
Perfect.
But that's to remove the stigma as well.
Right.
When
they made a bad decision 10 years ago. And
they go for the grace of God or whatever it is.
Exactly.
So I commend you for sharing your story. I think it's really important that you do that. And I love the fact that the book is contributing to it. And I really do agree. I've got 4 little grandkids now, and just technology for them at their young age, it's poor. But the era that we're going into now with AI, it's just going so fast, and information is accelerating at such a rapid speed. There's also that, what if I can't keep up? And then all of that stuff the humanness comes into it. So I really wanted to give you a platform for that.
Thank you.
And we will promote it as well.
Thank you.
So definitely appreciate that. Okay, so moving on, just before we finish up, if you had to advise or guide CEOs, leaders, say over the next 3 to 5 years in their business and scaling up their business and all the rest of it, what do you believe that they may need to understand about scaling revenue that perhaps they've underestimated?
We've already talked about the first 10 pages with the LIR, and there's a lot to unfold. So I'm going to have to pick one of the themes to give the audience some education, as well as perhaps a teaser to dig in a bit more.
Definitely.
And I would say, if we were to transition over to the pacing, the scale, how fast we go, the biggest mistake I see there is they perceive the scale moment as a one-time moment that happens after a fundraiser or at the beginning of a fiscal year, and underappreciate the operational flywheels and capabilities that need to be built to attain that level of scale. So let me just kind of bring that to life. I think most companies will, let's rewind to what happened in 2025. You're chasing the number. Q3, you're a little bit behind. Q4, you're motivating the team. Let's get to the $27 million target. Let's get there. And it's December 31st and we're almost there and we need 2 more deals. And they come in at 10 p.m. and we celebrate and we made the year. And then we do our New Year's celebrations and we have a long weekend with our family. And we come back in the office and give high fives. And then someone's like, okay, let's work on the 2026 plan. And the RevOps team and the CFO and everyone gets to work. And come January 15th, we have the plan and it's 48 million. And someone sits down and is like, okay, we need 22 new reps. And they hire 22 reps the next week and cross their fingers. And that is just causing a lot of amazing products and great companies and great jobs unnecessarily go away, because there is absolutely no appreciation of the underlying flywheels that need to occur to make 22 great hires. So let's give a couple examples. One way to perhaps correlate the quality of your hire is the number of qualified first interview screens that you conduct. And so if you conduct 2 interview screens and hire 1 of them, versus if you conduct 20 interview screens and hire 1 of them, the latter is probably going to yield a better team. And so let's say you're trying to do 10 interview screens per hire. That means you need 220 good interview screens to get to those 22 high quality hires. Where are those people coming from and who's doing those interviews? If we didn't do any in December. And so, and then furthermore, it's not like we're going to be able to double demand gen in a week.
Absolutely.
Right? So there's all these cadences that have to happen. So the simple answer there is we have to look at scale, not as put together the annual plan, hire all those reps in the second week of January and cross our fingers. We need to look at it as a continual pace that never turns off, but is simply throttled up and down as we measure the signals from our business. So it's not 22 hires in the second week of January and cross our fingers. It's 5 salespeople a quarter. Correct. And that's the plan, but we're going to revisit it in Q2 and say maybe it's 8 because all the signals are strong that we didn't get in the signals, but or maybe it's 2 because the signals are weak, and if you're SAP, you don't have that luxury. You're bringing on 750 people, but most of the companies we're talking to now and that you're working with, Bernadette, are not SAP, but they're running their business like they're SAP. So yeah, that would be it, is think about scale as a pace that is always on, and it's simply throttled up and down based on the signals of your business.
like the faucet, just turning it on, just moving it.
Yeah.
Okay, so where can people contact you, get in touch with you, connect with you, I should say, buy your book, The Science of Scaling, which clearly has got lots of nuggets in there. Let us know where.
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it anywhere you want to go, but Amazon's probably the easiest way to do it. And then for me, I'm most active on LinkedIn. If you want to contact me there, I try to get to most of the messages and comments, and it's a great opportunity to learn and collaborate. I'm always throwing out and testing new ideas there, so that would be the place to check it out.
Awesome. Now, before we go, I have what I call rapid fire. So you
Nice.
get to this, one word answers only.
Oh gosh.
Yes, one word answers. So here we go. And it's related to science of scaling. So most overrated metric in scaling revenue.
Lifetime value.
The biggest hidden killer of forecast accuracy.
Pipeline coverage is
Okay,
a pothole. I'm combining a couple words, but I'm saying it's
I get you. That's cool. The leadership trait that companies underestimate most during scale.
Coaching ability.
Oh, spot on there. What matters more in modern sales growth? Process or judgment?
You're not going to like it, but it's process is coming.
There you go. Well, no, I kind of do agree with you. I think they're even Stevens, but anyway.
Cool.
One word that defines the next era of revenue leadership.
One word. I have to dash all these, but agents and humans coexisting.
Yeah, it's going to be so interesting. So very interesting. Mark Roberge, it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed this conversation. The influence gap is really designed, well, it really, to me, is that space between a leader's intent or their message and the impact that they want to make. So I think you're making a huge impact out there. And I want to say thank you. Thank you for being a guest.
Thank you, Bernadette. Thanks for inviting me onto your platform. It's been a pleasure.
No, same here. All right. You have an amazing day. And to all our listeners, we will see you, or you will hear from us this time next week. Bye for now. That's a wrap on today's episode of The Influence Gap. If this resonated with you, share it with a CEO or a sales leader who you think needs to hear it. And make sure that you subscribe so that you never miss one single episode. If you are ready to close the gap between your message and the impact you want to make, come and find me at BernadetteMcClelland.com. I'll see you this time next week. Bye for now.